The room erupted in soft laughter, at my expense. The clink of glasses, pastel balloons tied to every chair, and the pile of pink and white baby gifts stacked neatly in the corner should have made this afternoon beautiful. It should have been a celebration of my sister's upcoming motherhood. But instead, my own mother's voice cut through the chatter like a sharp blade. "She's jealous because no man would stay with her," Mom said casually, her words tossed across the crowded room as if they were nothing more than a joke. The laughter swelled, quiet chuckles, hushed whispers, smug smiles exchanged between cousins and family friends. My face burned. My fingers tightened around the rim of my glass of sparkling cider until I thought it might shatter in my hand. I didn't flinch. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't even give her the satisfaction of a response. I lifted the glass, sipped slowly, and pretended her words didn't pierce me like shrapnel. But inside, I was screaming. The silence that followed stretched for half a beat. Then, the sound of the front door opening sliced through the tension. Everyone turned, and then he walked in. My husband, Daniel. Tall, sharp jawline, still in his tailored gray suit from work, holding a bouquet of white lilies and pink roses so large it seemed to glow against the dull colors of the room. His hazel eyes swept across the faces, landing finally on mine, softening in a way that made my chest tighten. The whispers stopped. The air shifted. My mother's smug smile faltered, the color draining from her face. Daniel crossed the room without hesitation. Not a glance at the staring relatives. Not a single acknowledgement of their frozen expressions. He came straight to me. "For you," he murmured, placing the flowers in my arms before kissing me on the forehead in front of everyone. His voice was low, firm, meant only for me, but loud enough for the room to hear. "You deserve more than this." The silence was deafening. My mother cleared her throat, trying to recover. "Well, Daniel, we didn't expect you. You must be busy. We were just talking about how no man would stay with me." I cut in, my voice finally sharp, louder than I intended. The sting of her words lingered, but now, with Daniel's presence steady beside me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, the urge to fight back. A few guests looked down at their drinks, embarrassed. My sister shifted uncomfortably in her chair, hand brushing her baby bump. Daniel's hand pressed gently against the small of my back. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His silence was a shield, his presence louder than any defense I could make. I looked at my mother, her lips parting but no words forming. For the first time in years, she didn't seem so powerful. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel so small. The flowers trembled slightly in my hands, not from their weight, but from the realization settling in my chest. This moment wasn't about my sister's baby shower anymore. This was about the truth, about years of being the family scapegoat, the whispered jokes, the comparisons, the endless weight of being the disappointment. And now, in front of everyone, the facade had cracked, because the man she swore would never exist for me was here. And he wasn't just staying. He was standing. With me. I glanced around the room. Their faces told a story. Some wore guilt. Some wore shock. A few even had the decency to look ashamed. But my mother's face? It was pale, her hands trembling just slightly against the edge of the tablecloth. For once, she had no words, and I was just getting started. The silence didn't last. A chair scraped against the polished wood floor as my aunt leaned forward, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. "Well," she said with a forced laugh, "I'm sure your mother didn't mean it that way. We're all just joking around." "Joking?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I'd ever dared in this house. "Do you always laugh when someone's dignity gets torn apart?" Gasps fluttered across the room. My mother's lips pressed thin, her eyes narrowing with that old familiar glare, the one that used to shrink me as a child. But this time, I didn't look away. Daniel slipped the flowers from my hands, setting them gently on the table, and laced his fingers with mine. His touch steadied me. His silence gave me power. "You've always done this," I continued, my eyes never leaving my mother's. "Every family gathering, every dinner, every chance you got, you turned me into the punchline. I took it. I swallowed it. Because I thought maybe one day you'd see me differently. But I guess cruelty is the only language you know." The air was heavy. My sister shifted uncomfortably, her voice small but cutting. "Mom? Maybe you did. Go too far this time. Don't you start," Mom hissed, glaring at her. "You have everything you've ever wanted because of me. Don't forget who held you up." Her tone dripped with venom, and for a moment, even my sister looked stunned. That was when Daniel spoke. Calm, controlled, every syllable slicing like glass. "I didn't want to say anything today," he began, his voice low but commanding enough to make every head turn. "But I've listened long enough. I've watched my wife walk into rooms filled with people who claim to be family, only to be humiliated, mocked, treated like she's less. Do you realize how much strength it takes to keep showing up here?" My mother's jaw tightened, but Daniel didn't stop. "You told everyone no man would stay with her, but I'm here. And I'm not just staying. I'm building with her. I've seen more loyalty, kindness, and resilience in this woman than I've ever seen in anyone else. So if you think your words can break her, you're wrong. They only reveal who you really are." The hush that fell over the room was suffocating. No one dared move. And then, like a mask slipping, my mother laughed. Cold, bitter. "You think a speech changes anything? You think just because you walk in here with flowers, suddenly she's not the same insecure, unwanted girl she's always been? She'll never rise above what she is." Her words were venom, but this time I didn't feel them sink into my skin. I felt the fury rise instead. "Enough," I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "If I'm such a disappointment, if you think I'll never amount to anything, then stop pretending. Say it clearly. Say to everyone here that I was never good enough for you. Go ahead, Mom. Say it." The challenge cut the air. Her eyes darted around, searching for support, but found none. Even the cousins who'd laughed earlier now shifted uncomfortably, their smiles gone. She opened her mouth, but no words came. That silence was louder than anything. I felt Daniel's grip on my hand tighten slightly, pride radiating from him like heat. "Funny," I said softly, my eyes never leaving hers. "Because while you've been busy tearing me down, I've been building a life you can't touch, a life that doesn't need your approval." My sister's eyes widened at my words, curiosity and confusion flickering in her gaze. Others whispered, wondering what I meant. But I stayed silent. I wasn't going to hand them the whole story. Not yet. Let them stew. Let them realize that the girl they thought was powerless had found her voice. And as the tension thickened, Daniel lifted my hand and kissed it gently, a small gesture, but in that charged silence, it felt like an earthquake. I saw it in their faces, the shift, the disbelief, the dawning realization. For once, I wasn't the shadow at the edge of the room. I was the center. And my mother, she was unraveling. The baby shower had turned into something else entirely, and this was only the beginning. The tension in the room was suffocating, every eye pinned on me as if waiting for me to retreat back into silence like I always had. But I wasn't going to, because something inside me had snapped, and there was no going back. My mother's forced smirk wavered as I straightened my shoulders, my voice cutting through the room with a clarity that made even the clinking of glasses stop. "You've spent years making me small so you could feel big. Years turning me into the cautionary tale at family dinners. Years reminding everyone that I was the one who couldn't keep a job, couldn't keep a relationship, couldn't keep up. But you never stopped to ask yourself why I stopped trying to prove anything to you. My words landed like blows, and I saw her flinch, just slightly, as if the shield of arrogance was starting to crack. Daniel's hand remained locked, with mine, his presence steady, but his eyes burned with quiet fury as he watched the woman who claimed to love me attempt to dismantle me in front of everyone. My sister tried to interject, her voice soft. Maybe we should just... But I cut her off with a sharpness that surprised even me. No. For once, we're not sweeping this under the rug. For once, I want everyone to hear it. Gasps rose. Relatives exchanged uneasy glances, and my aunt shifted uncomfortably in her chair as if wishing she hadn't come. My mother's laugh was brittle, like glass on the edge of shattering. You think anyone believes you're the victim here? You've always been envious of your sister, always jealous of what she has, and nothing you say changes that. The Dao. Venom in her tone might have once silenced me, but not now. Not with Daniel standing at my side. Not with the years of swallowed hurt boiling over into something unstoppable. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice low but steady. I am jealous. Jealous that she had the mother I never got. Jealous that while you praised her for every tiny accomplishment, you tore me apart for every misstep. Jealous that she grew up feeling loved, while I grew up learning that love came with conditions. But that jealousy doesn't make me weak. It makes me aware. And today, in front of everyone, I'm not going to let you rewrite the story anymore. A heavy silence followed, and for the first time, I saw guilt flash in my sister's eyes, as if she was finally realizing the truth behind my words. Daniel squeezed my hand, his jaw tight as he finally added, "What's remarkable isn't that she's still standing after all the years you tried to crush her. It's that she's stronger than all of you combined. You tried to convince her she was unworthy, but I've seen her build a life filled with more courage, more compassion, and more resilience than anything in this room." His words rang like a verdict, and I watched the color drain from my mother's face, her facade collapsing as whispers spread across the guests, some staring at me with something new, respect, maybe even admiration. My aunt shifted again, clearing her throat, clearly uncomfortable with the spectacle. But it was too late. The truth was out, and it was unraveling decades of control in front of everyone. "You can keep pretending you're the victim," I told my mother, my voice firm. "But the truth is, you needed me to stay broken so you could stay powerful. I'm done playing that role." My mother tried to speak, her voice faltering. "You ungrateful." But Daniel's voice cut her off, deeper and sharper than I'd ever heard it. "No, she's not ungrateful. She's just finally free." That line landed like a hammer, and the room erupted, not in applause, but in silence so thick it pressed against the walls. A silence that screamed louder than any defense my mother could muster. My sister lowered her gaze, her hands folded tightly over her baby bump as if clinging to the innocence she was about to bring into the world, maybe realizing how twisted the legacy she grew up under truly was. I looked around at the guests, faces pale, embarrassed, some ashamed to even meet my eyes. And for once, I didn't shrink beneath their stares. I let them see me, the real me, the woman who had walked through fire and was finally willing to burn down every lie built at her expense. And in that moment, I realized something deeper. This wasn't just about my mother's words at a baby shower, it was about reclaiming the years of my life that had been stolen by her cruelty. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with release, as if every breath I took was no longer borrowed under her shadow, but truly mine. Daniel leaned close, his voice only for me. "You don't have to prove anything to them anymore. You never did." My throat ached, but I held my head high, because he was right, and for the first time in my life I actually believed it. The baby shower had turned into a battlefield of truth, and while my mother sat stiff in her chair, her pride unraveling, before everyone's eyes, I felt a power I'd never felt before pulse through me, a freedom I had only dreamed about. My voice didn't shake as I spoke again, my words cutting clean. All my life, you told me I was nothing. But here's the truth, Mom. I'm more than the label you slapped on me. I'm a wife. I'm a partner. I'm a woman who has built a life on her own terms, with a man who chose me not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And I will never let you take that from me again. Her face paled, her eyes darting to the guests who sat frozen, some unable to look her in the eye anymore, some whispering among themselves. But the shame that once belonged to me now spread across her like fire she couldn't put out. My sister, visibly shaken, finally whispered, "She's right." And the words were so soft yet so sharp, they cracked whatever illusion my mother had left of being untouchable. Daniel pulled me closer, his presence an anchor in the storm, and he looked around the room, his voice steady as steel. "You've all seen how she's been treated and you stayed silent, but silence makes you part of it. If you ever truly loved her, it's time you showed it, not in whispers after the fact, but now, when it matters." The words hung heavy, and I could feel the weight pressing down on every relative sitting there, the guilt of years they'd laughed along or turned away. A few lowered their eyes, shame flooding their faces, while others looked at me with something new, acknowledgement, maybe even regret. My mother slammed her glass on the table, her voice trembling with rage. "This is supposed to be a celebration, not your stage for melodrama." And I didn't even blink as I answered, "No, Mom, this is supposed to be a family, but you turned it into a competition, a performance, a place where cruelty was disguised as love. I'm done playing." My words hit like thunder, and Daniel kissed the side of my head, his quiet support amplifying my strength. The silence that followed was unlike any before. It wasn't just awkward, it was final. The kind of silence that comes when something toxic finally dies. I looked at my sister one last time, her wide eyes glistening, and said gently, "I hope your child grows up in love that doesn't break them." It was the last truth I needed to say, and then I stood, Daniel standing with me, the bouquet of flowers still bright against the dullness of the room. As we walked toward the door, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel overlooked. I felt unchained. And as we stepped outside, the cool air hit my skin like a baptism, a cleansing of years, of silence, and Daniel whispered, "You didn't just survive in there, you won." I smiled for the first time that day, not the polite smile I'd worn for years to keep peace, but a real one, the kind that came from finally choosing myself. And while I knew my mother's words might still sting in quiet moments, they would never define me again. Because the truth wasn't in her cruelty, it was in the fact that despite everything, I had risen, I had spoken, and I had walked away not broken, but whole.